What is going on, YouTube? Dragon Tamer Blade here, and today I have something very special, very awesome. We are going to be revealing one of the upcoming cards from the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood expansion. Expansion is launching on April 5th, available for pre-order now. You get a pretty awesome premium Night Mother card. You get a mount for Elder Scrolls Online if you play it. Just in general, it's good to support the developers for this game that most of us have been playing a ton since open beta started, so it's pretty good to support the game that we've all been playing. So the guys at Bethesda and Direwolf were nice enough to let me go ahead and reveal one of these cards, so we're going to go ahead and bring it up right now. This is what you guys are here for, so we're going to not take any time and get on into it. And here it is right here up on the screen. We'll zoom in a little bit. We have the Blood Sorceress. It's a 1-drop under Intelligence. I know people have been mentioning that they wanted to see more Intelligence cards. So here we go. And this is a very unique card. It's one of the cards where when you first look at it, well, I'll take you through my thought process a little bit. So when I first looked at this card, I thought, oh my god, this card is broken. But that's because I did not read this first part that said at the start of your turn. I just saw if you have 7 or more max magicka, deal 5 damage to your opponent. I was like, holy crap, that is incredibly broken. But it is good to see that developers have put some thought into these cards and remembered kind of issues that the community had with cards like Hissgrove, and at the start of your turn makes this a much more reasonable card. But still, when you get past that, you think, okay, so it's a 1-drop, it's only got 1 health, this isn't that strong of a card, and to an extent I agree with you. It is a relatively high-risk, high-reward card. Obviously, if you play this card turn 1, turn 2, you're not going to get the value out of it. On turn 1, it's just a 2-1. It gets removed by most things. You're not going to get any value out of this card besides the body. What makes this card unique is that it's a low-cost, late-game card. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure in most, I guess, control decks, mage, stuff like that, when you're starting to get ready to want to end the game, and if you played a 9 magicka creature on turn 10, so you have that 1 magicka left over, and you're starting to get ready to try and push for the end of the game, it's a great card to play alongside it. And the thing that I was kind of thinking about, and it kind of relates to the card that Justin revealed, the orc that keeps max magicka at 7, is if you play that card and you manage to get even one of these out, if not 3 of these, multiple, whatever, it's going to be hard to remove multiple of these Blood Sorceress. And the reason why is, if you're thinking about late game cards that can kind of remove multiple creatures off the board, not only will you have some bigger creatures on the board by turn 7 that your opponent probably already wasted a bunch of removal on, if you lock the max magicka at 7, you're thinking about they can't Dawn's Wrath anymore, they can't Odaving to wipe your board. Basically, the biggest thing that Blood Sorceress is scared of is low-cost pings, which your opponent probably will have played by the time you're playing these Blood Sorceress, and something like a Skaven Pyromancer, which again, most of your opponents will have played them by the time you're going to be dropping this card. But those are the 2 biggest, I guess, threats if you're managing to lock this down in conjunction with that Orc card. But it pairs nicely with a bunch of stuff. This is another card that pairs greatly with Wisp-Mother decks. This is a pretty solid card for, I would say, ward decks late game if you need to start pushing extra damage. Put ward on this thing to kind of protect it a little bit. And this is another thing that I didn't realize at first until I started thinking more about it. This at the start of your turn means every turn. So if you have one of these out and you manage to keep it on the field for multiple turns, you're doing 5 damage per Blood Sorceress every single turn, which means that if you get it out with Wisp-Mother, there's tons of potential for snowballing. So let's take a look at some of the cards. I don't know why I went into the pack screen. Let's take a look at some of the cards that I think could be decent pairs for this. I'll open up all cards because I don't have all cards. So Relentless Raider plus Blood Sorceress with Wisp-Mother could be pretty awesome. Not quite the OTK of 5 times Relentless Raider, but if you haven't drawn all of them, pairing them together could be a nice little 2-turn kill combo. Obviously, here's Wisp-Mother. You can get 2 of these things out at once. And like I said, late game, if you're putting them in the Shadow Lane, you're opponent's not going to have tons of cheap removal left over by the time you're going to be playing these cards towards the end of the game to really take advantage of that kind of damage. Basically, they're not going to have firebolts left. Like I said, no pyromancers. Even most of the little archer effects should be down by then. Although, like I said, they're always going to be at risk of stuff like that. Being that they're red guards and you're going to be playing them in probably, if not a pure control deck, I even thought about the ways it could fit into my regular items deck, which had me kind of thinking maybe I should run more health gaining, or not that I want to put a maple shield, but stuff like that in. The other thing that I think it could do really well with is something with, if you go for kind of a control guard deck, something like Sorcerer, or if you have Indral Archmage as a guard to kind of keep your guy protected, and you pair it with a lot of the purple cards. There's a lot of purple guards and silences, and basically, like, I would play cards like Faroon Defender to try and get me towards the late game, where I can kind of lay a couple of those Blood Sorcerers down behind a couple big guards and just kind of let them chip away at my opponents from there and kind of make my opponent break through my guards. And you can pair that with things like Watch Commander, Mountain Tyrant, Preserver of the Root, Stalwart Ally, to kind of make almost like a stally deck where you don't ever really go for the kill. Even Nahagleave works well, where you're not trying to go for damage with your creatures per se, as much as you're just trying to put up a big wall to protect these kind of creatures that are throwing damage from afar. And couple that, you can't quite couple it with the new card of the month, the Sower of Revenge, but it's a similar effect where Sower of Revenge makes you have to kill the card for 5 damage one time, whereas this is a 1-cost card that you can get 5 damage per turn if you find a way to keep it alive. And that's basically going to be the most difficult part of making this card work, which I think is where the balance lies. I know a lot of people were kind of worried about the power level of the Sower of Revenge, because it's a solid cost, it's got guard, it's got a good body, and it has that awesome effect, whereas this Blood Sorceress, I think, is pretty well balanced because it's got that super high power level in terms of being able to get that big 5 damage per turn per card, but at the same time your opponent kind of has multiple ways to answer it in terms of silence effects, any form of damage they can get on it. So you definitely have to work to defend it in order to really get the value out of it. So that's why I think it's going to work best in a deck kind of endurance based. I know it's an intelligence card, so you're obviously going to have to run intelligence, but something like Sorcerer could probably keep it around nicely. If not a pure ward deck, you could throw in Keeper of Whispers to keep it from being silenced. But it's definitely, in my opinion, it's a very interesting card that I think it doesn't work in all decks, which is a good card design because you don't want to always be releasing cards that work in everything. But it's definitely the kind of card where if you have the kind of deck that is built to run a card like this, and you have the kind of skill to run a card like this, I think it can definitely be incredibly powerful. And even cards like Device Fear, Supreme Attributes to an extent, you could have almost a full deck built around indirect damage to your opponent, not having to attack with your creatures and having your creatures' ability do damage. Whereas you can use your creatures for kind of controlling your opponent's board, which I think is pretty powerful. You can even use Baron of Tear, Baron of Tear, whatever it is. There's a lot of different cards I think can combo pretty nicely with it, and I'm definitely interested to see the way that the community can take a card like this and kind of really unlock its fullest potential, which is kind of what you want to see with an expansion. Is once you get the card into the community's hands, definitely want to see what they can do. One card that I was expecting, that I was thinking about, at first I was between the card of the month plus Blood Sorceress. I was thinking Stampede Sentinel probably is going to get a lot better, but then I realized it's only actions or supports. So not even Stampede Sentinel is protecting you from these new cards in terms of damage to the face. So I'm hoping that at some point they introduce some sort of mechanic where you can only be damaged by direct face damage, something like that, if a card's on the field, something like that to that effect. Fireball is another very rarely seen card that Blood Sorceress is weak to, but for the most part, It matches up nicely with most colors in terms of going against it. Strength has a bunch of answers. Intelligence, like I said, is going to have already used their fire bolts and even some of their lightning bolts by turn 7, 8, 9. And it also kind of gives some more options for 1-drops in blue decks. For the most part, Brutal Ashlander, I don't usually love to run because of the RNG of the last gasp. You don't always want to go face and breaking a rune. Crown Quartermaster is a solid 1-drop, and it's even better when you're running an items deck. Nib and Bay Cutthroat is just okay. It's not fantastic, so it's nice to throw another 1-drop in there, and especially, like I said, most late-game cards are usually high mana cost, so it's nice to have a late-game oriented card that you can combo with a bunch of your other late-game cards because of the low cost of it. But that's going to be it for my reveal, guys. Like I said, Fall of the Dark Brotherhood comes out April 5th, so definitely pre-order that if you haven't already. Let me know if you guys have any other ideas in terms of synergies or combos that you're thinking about playing this card. Let me know your opinions of the card down below in the comments section. But that's going to be it for now, guys. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.